April 2024. The world believes the Titanic sank from an iceberg, a tragedy explained for a century. But as Charon, a next-generation AI drone, descends into the shattered hull, it identifies a rhythmic thermal pulse no human ever knew existed. What it records deep inside coal bunker number 6 confirms a suppressed theory: catastrophic fire damage that rewrote the disaster's cause. How much of the official Titanic story is still true, and what else has been deliberately hidden below the waves? 12,500 feet below the surface, the pressure is enough to crush steel like a soda can. Yet Charon, the AI-powered drone, operates as if this hostile world is home. Its hull is forged from titanium alloy T6Al4Fe, the same grade used in deep-sea submersibles and spacecraft. Every seam, every weld is certified to withstand a relentless 6,000 pounds per square inch. At these depths, even a hairline fracture could be fatal for any machine. But Charon's pressure vessel is engineered for absolute integrity. The heart of its mobility lies in a ring of 12 vectored thrusters. Each one is independently controlled, allowing Charon to pivot, drift, or hover with surgical precision. This is not just about moving forward and back. Inside the Titanic's twisted corridors, the drone must dodge collapsed beams, squeeze through jagged openings, and hold position in currents that swirl unpredictably. Redundant systems mean that if a thruster fails, Charon's mission does not end. It adapts, recalculates, and presses on. The camera module, protected by a synthetic sapphire lens several inches thick, shrugs off the crushing force outside. Sapphire is chosen not just for its clarity, but for its hardness and resistance to scratching, a necessity when navigating close to rusted steel and debris. The lens housing and all external fixtures pass rigorous hydrostatic testing, simulating the full force of the Atlantic's abyss before ever approaching the real wreck. Data integrity is as vital as physical strength. Charon's onboard storage uses solid-state drives in RAID configuration, verified by hash checks to prevent even the slightest data corruption. A fiber optic tether links the drone to the surface, relaying live sensor streams and control commands with zero lag. This lifeline also means unlimited dive time, immune to the battery limitations that ground other vehicles. Data is the mission. Every detail of Charon's design is a response to the dangers of the deep. The titanium chassis is not just a shell, it is a guarantee that the drone can venture where no human-built probe has survived for long. In the silent, crushing darkness around the Titanic, reliability is not a luxury. It is the only way to bring back the evidence that could change history. Charon's most formidable asset lies in its sensor suite, a network of analytical tools built for forensic-grade evidence gathering. At the core is a subsurface thermal scanner designed for deep-sea use and capable of detecting minute differences in temperature across corroded steel and sediment. It operates in the far infrared spectrum, mapping even subtle heat signatures that could indicate past structural stresses or chemical changes invisible to the naked eye. Paired with this is a metallurgical stress sensor calibrated to read microfractures and crystalline patterns within the Titanic's steel. Each scan is time-stamped and geolocated, producing a layered map of the wreck's physical state down to the molecular level. Data integrity is paramount. Charon's imaging array captures every angle in 8K resolution, generating a data set of more than 715,000 photographs during a single mapping mission. This visual archive alone fills 16 terabytes of storage, every image automatically hashed and verified for authenticity the moment it is recorded. The onboard AI continuously cross-references new sensor data with archival blueprints and previous dives, flagging anomalies and compiling a real-time, three-dimensional model of the ship's collapse and decay. The AI co-pilot is more than just an autopilot. It acts as a second set of eyes, running collision avoidance routines while simultaneously analyzing sonar returns, chemical spectra, and stress signatures. The system can identify when a reading falls outside historical norms, instantly alerting the surface team and logging the event for later review. This constant feedback loop means that every pass through the wreck is both a search for new evidence and a rigorous audit of the data already collected. Chain of custody is built into the process. Each file, whether a raw image, a stress map, or a thermal overlay, is assigned a unique digital fingerprint. The mission's data officer oversees this pipeline, confirming that every byte of information can be traced from the seafloor to the secure servers on the research vessel. This level of documentation ensures that any discovery, no matter how controversial, stands up to scientific scrutiny and public review. With this arsenal, Charon transforms the Titanic from a static ruin into a living forensic archive. The ship's secrets are no longer locked behind rust and darkness. They are rendered as streams of data, open to examination by experts and skeptics alike. This is not just exploration, it is a transparent, accountable investigation, with every scan and snapshot ready for peer review. Frederick Barrett, the leading fireman in Boiler Room 6, described the fire on Titanic as a constant living threat. He and his team fought it for days, shoveling burning coal from one side of the bunker to the other, water hoses running non-stop. The fire had started before the ship even left Belfast. Barrett later testified that the steel near the coal bunker grew so hot the paint blistered and peeled. Coal dust, thick in the air, stuck to their skin and uniforms, while the heat made the metal bulkhead radiate warmth through the soles of their boots. Relief shifts barely made a difference. The fire kept burning deep in the pile, fed by tons of coal and the ship's forced draft ventilation. Barrett's words, recorded in the British Wreck Commissioner's inquiry, are blunt. "We had to keep loading coal, no matter the heat." Survivors from the engine rooms recalled officers ordering them to keep the fire under control at all costs. Official logs show the fire was not extinguished until 3 days into the maiden voyage, after Titanic had already left Southampton and was well into the North Atlantic. Barrett described working in 12-hour shifts, the crew rotating through the worst of the heat. Water was sprayed directly onto the steel, but the fire smoldered on deep inside the bunker. The men worried the heat might damage the bulkhead, but no one dared stop. Orders from above were clear: keep the engines fed and keep the ship on schedule. The British inquiry records show that the fire was known to officers and management, but its severity was played down in public. Barrett's testimony, preserved in the official transcripts, stands as the most direct account of the bunker fire's reality. For days, the Titanic carried a hidden danger in her belly, a fire that never made the headlines but left its mark on the steel and on the men who tried to hold it back. Historians have long debated the chain of evidence surrounding the Titanic's final days in port. The most provocative claim centers on a handful of rare photographs, negatives never entered into any public archive, showing a faint, smoke-like streak along the starboard hull just above the waterline. The images come from a descendant of a Harland and Wolff director, and they have been scrutinized by photographic experts, yet their authenticity remains unresolved. The negatives surfaced decades after the disaster, bypassing both official inquiries and the White Star Line's own records. No certified chain of custody exists. The originals have never been submitted for independent forensic analysis. The streak's location corresponds to the area of coal bunker number 6, where a fire is documented to have burned before departure. Some point to these images as visual proof of burn marks, while others argue the streak is a photographic artifact, an illusion created by reflected light on fresh paint. Without public access to the negatives, the debate remains unresolved. Maritime historians on both sides of the Atlantic have called for the images to be released for peer review, but the family holding the collection has so far declined. Procedural records from Southampton raise further questions. Contemporary mooring diagrams typically show the Titanic docked bow first, yet eyewitness accounts suggest the ship was reversed into her berth, an unusual maneuver for a vessel of her size. Port logs from April 1912 are incomplete, with several pages missing or unaccounted for. No surviving logbook explicitly confirms the direction of docking, and White Star Line's own diagrams offer no clarification. The reversal theory persists largely on the strength of anecdote, a handful of crew statements and press observations that the starboard hull was less visible to embarking passengers and reporters. The absence of conclusive documentation, coupled with missing engineering logs and private photographic evidence, leaves the question open. What was hidden from public view as the Titanic sailed from Southampton? Who controlled the flow of information, intentionally or not, about the ship's true condition? As the drone prepares to enter the forward wreck, these evidentiary gaps sharpen the sense of uncertainty. The next phase of the investigation will have to answer what the historical record cannot. Inside the Titanic's shattered hull, Charon's lights sweep across a world frozen in time. The drone glides past a row of deck chairs still lined up along the rusted edge of the promenade, their wooden slats warped but intact after more than a century in darkness. Nearby, a pair of leather shoes sit side by side at the threshold of a collapsed doorway. The soles are curled and the stitching is gone, but the shape remains untouched since the night their owner stepped out onto the cold steel deck. A little further, nestled in a drift of silt, a porcelain doll gazes upward, its painted eyes unblinking. The dress, once white, is now the color of the seabed. Nothing stirs in the surrounding gloom except the slow descent of marine snow, tiny flakes of organic debris settling over everything year after year. These objects are not just relics. They are the last witnesses to a lost world, preserved by the cold and the pressure, and by the silence that followed disaster. The preservation here is uneven and unpredictable. In some compartments, the lack of oxygen and the chill of the deep have kept fabrics and wood remarkably whole. Elsewhere, iron-eating bacteria have devoured metal fixtures, leaving only the ghostly outlines of what once was. Every artifact, whether a broken teacup lodged in the grating, a brass doorknob flecked with corrosion, or a child's hairbrush tangled in sediment, offers a glimpse of the lives interrupted on April 15, 1912. Exact locations are cataloged in the mission logs. The shoes rest outside what was once a first-class stateroom on C deck, just aft of the grand staircase. The deck chairs line the starboard promenade, sheltered by the overhang, protected from the worst of the currents. The doll lies in a debris field near the purser's office, surrounded by fragments of luggage and a rusted frame that once held a mirror. Each item is mapped, measured, and left undisturbed, documented as part of a digital archive, not a trophy to be claimed. For the operators and researchers, these moments weigh heavily. The drone's progress slows as it enters these spaces, the hum of servos and the flicker of LEDs the only signs of intrusion. The team follows strict protocols, no contact, no disturbance, only observation. The mission's purpose is not to recover, but to remember, to record what remains before it is lost to time and decay. The presence of personal belongings transforms the wreck from a site of technical investigation into a memorial. Every artifact is a reminder of the people who once filled these rooms, passengers who carried their hopes and fears aboard, crew who worked below decks, children whose toys now lie silent in the darkness. The boundary between science and reverence is thin here. Each discovery is met with a pause, a moment to reflect on the cost of what was lost. As Charon moves deeper, the familiar gives way to the unknown. The drone leaves behind the recognizable relics of daily life and enters a region where collapse and corrosion have erased all traces of comfort. The solemn procession of artifacts fades, replaced by twisted beams and shifting shadows. But the memory of what was seen, the shoes, the doll, the deck chairs, lingers, shaping every decision that follows. The story of the Titanic is not just steel and data. It is the sum of thousands of lives preserved in fragments, waiting in the dark. Calibration begins at depth, where every system on Charon must perform flawlessly or risk the integrity of the entire mission. The engineering team initiates a full diagnostic. Thruster response, sensor array, camera focus, and data transmission are each put through their paces. The AI co-pilot runs a self-check, cycling through collision avoidance routines and mapping the immediate environment in real time. Sonar returns are compared against baseline models, with any deviation instantly flagged for review. Calibration and integrity are absolute. The subsurface thermal scanner, a tool capable of detecting minute temperature gradients across steel and sediment, is powered up and subjected to a series of calibration sweeps. The process involves directing the scanner at a known reference panel, an inert titanium block, marked and cataloged before deployment. The scanner's data is hashed, producing a unique calibration file. On the surface, the systems engineer reads the hash aloud as it appears on the mission log, a string of numbers and letters that proves the scan can be traced and verified by any outside observer. This file is published alongside the raw mission data, ensuring that every subsequent reading is grounded in a transparent, tamper-proof baseline. The metallurgical stress sensor is next. It targets a control sample embedded in the drone's frame, measuring microfractures and crystalline structure at the molecular level. These results are instantly compared to lab standards, confirming the sensor's accuracy in the hostile deep-sea environment. The data officer logs the sensor's output, cross-checking the digital fingerprint against the pre-dive reference. Any discrepancy, no matter how small, would halt the mission and trigger a full diagnostic. But the numbers match. The calibration is clean. Charon's imaging array is subjected to a focus and exposure test. The 8K sensor captures a series of stills and video of a coded placard attached to the deployment frame. Each image is checked for clarity, color accuracy, and geolocation metadata. The AI overlays the calibration grid, confirming that no distortion or data loss has occurred during descent. The placard's serial number and timestamp are recorded, creating an unbroken chain of custody from the surface to the wreck and back again. Throughout the process, the mission's data integrity protocols operate in the background. Every file, thermal, stress, visual, and sonar is hashed and logged, each step witnessed and signed off by the system's engineer. The calibration montage is not a formality. It is a public statement of confidence in the data that will soon follow. The team knows that any finding, no matter how extraordinary, will be subject to scrutiny. By publishing calibration files, sensor logs, and data hashes, they invite outside experts to audit every claim and every anomaly. With the calibration complete, Charon's sensors are now tuned to the unique conditions of the wreck. The drone hovers in place, its systems green across the board. The next scan will not be of inert metal or coated placards, but of the Titanic herself, her steel, her scars, her secrets. The team prepares to capture evidence that, once recorded, cannot be dismissed or erased. Confidence in the tools is absolute. What remains is to see what the ship will reveal. Charon's sensor suite locks onto the forward bulkhead where the drone's anomaly alert first spiked. The mission log records the precise time code 021427. The subsurface thermal scanner begins its sweep, overlaying a false color map atop the battered steel. In the control room, Dr. Elena Alvarez, a metallurgist with 2 decades of experience in forensic materials analysis, leans in. Her eyes move between the real-time data stream and the 3-dimensional model building on her tablet. Thermal overlay complete. Maximum differential detected at bulkhead. Segment 6B, stress sensor online. The stress sensor's readout is immediate and unambiguous, a spike in the crystallization metric far above baseline for century-old steel. Charon's AI highlights the region in red, cross-referencing the coordinates with archival blueprints. Dr. Alvarez points to the live model. This zone shows a microstructure consistent with exposure to extreme heat. The grain boundaries are irregular with localized embrittlement. That does not happen at ambient temperature or even under normal boiler operation. She references the calibration file, confirming the sensor's accuracy. The mission's data officer reads out the sensor ID HES Charon Stress 004. Each data point is hashed and logged, ensuring that every measurement can be audited by outside experts. Alvarez continues, "We are seeing a crystallization index that, in controlled lab conditions, only appears when steel is heated above 1,000 degrees Celsius. That is consistent with a coal bunker fire burning unchecked for days." The AI co-pilot overlays the stress data onto the photogrammetry mesh. The warped bulkhead is not just deformed, it is fractured along a line that matches the historical location of coal bunker number 6. Alvarez explains, "At these temperatures, steel loses ductility. It becomes brittle, crystals grow, fractures propagate. If water breached this barrier, it would have collapsed almost instantly." The mission log adds a new entry, metallurgical stress anomaly, segment 6B, timestamped and geolocated. The team cross-checks the findings with survivor testimony and archival engineering reports. The numbers align. Barrett's account of blistering heat, the persistent fire, the warnings about the bulkhead are now mapped directly onto the physical evidence. Alvarez offers her scientific verdict. This is not just surface corrosion or post-wreck decay. The metallurgical signature here is clear. The steel was fundamentally altered by prolonged high-temperature exposure, well above anything produced by normal ship operations. The data supports the fire theory. The scan is published in the mission's open access archive. Every calibration file, every sensor log, every 8K overlay is made available for peer review. The verdict is not based on speculation or rumor, but on hard, reproducible evidence. The collapse model drawn from these findings will be used to reconstruct the final moments of Titanic's structural failure. For the first time, The debate over the fire's role is grounded in data that cannot be dismissed or erased. The collapse model generated by Charon's photogrammetry reveals a ship in rapid decline. Data points from over 700,000 images feed into the mesh, each error value mapped and scrutinized by the mission's archaeological lead, Dr. Simon Cavanaugh. He examines the digital twin, his finger tracing a line where the forward bulkhead once stood firm. The mesh does not lie. The barrier between coal bunker number 6 and boiler room 5 is not only warped, it has failed entirely, its remnants twisted into the debris field. Cavanaugh's voice is steady, but carries the weight of loss. This section is gone. Catastrophic collapse. The sequence is clear. Every scan confirms the urgency. The iconic captain's bathtub, once a symbol of the wreck's eerie preservation, is missing from the latest model. The main mast, a fixture in earlier dives, has toppled and vanished into the silt. Bacterial colonies, rusticles, spread unchecked, accelerating decay by as much as 20% each decade. The wreck is dissolving faster than even the most pessimistic estimates. Cavanaugh catalogs each loss, noting that what survives today may be gone before the next mission arrives. The 3D model's precision allows for a forensic reconstruction of Titanic's final hours. When the iceberg struck, the flooding should have been contained by the forward bulkhead, but the collapse model shows a chain reaction. Water reached the fire-weakened steel, and the barrier gave way instantly. The simulation overlays survivor accounts with the digital mesh, timing, angles, and brake patterns all align. The photogrammetry does not assign blame, but the verdict is inescapable. The fire, long downplayed or dismissed, played a decisive role in the ship's fate. Yet, as the team reviews the anomaly logs, the AI co-pilot flags a new irregularity. Deep within the mapped debris of Cargo Hold 2, the system identifies a dense lead-lined object. The mass is substantial, several hundred kilograms, with spectral readings inconsistent with any item listed in the original cargo manifest or insurance records. The object's outline is blurred by silt and corrosion, but the lead signature is unmistakable. There is no reference to such cargo in any archival document. Cavanaugh cross-checks the manifest, then the insurance ledgers. Nothing matches. The anomaly stands apart from the collapse model, a question mark in a sea of answers. The discovery unsettles the team. The fire theory, once a fringe hypothesis, now has hard forensic support, but the lead-lined object opens a new line of inquiry, one that cannot be explained by fire or ice. Dr. Cavanaugh's reaction is measured, but his unease is clear. We solve one mystery and another appears in its place. The data is published in the mission archive, but the anomaly remains unresolved. As the wreck decays, the window for answers narrows. The Titanic's secrets are slipping away, one rusticle at a time. Before the first scan, the mission lead convened with representatives from Titanic's descendant families, maritime heritage organizations, and the UNESCO Underwater Cultural Heritage Division. Each group was given advance access to the dive protocols and a seat at the table as operational guidelines were finalized. The site's status as a declared maritime grave was never in question. 1,517 lives were lost, their final resting place marked not by headstones, but by the silence of the deep. A descendant representative, Sarah O'Leary, spoke on behalf of families whose relatives were aboard. Her words carried a steady conviction. We want the truth, not spectacle. If this work proves the fire theory, let the world judge, but show us the data and respect the grave. The team listened as she described the pain of seeing family names reduced to footnotes and the importance of honoring not just history, but memory. Ethical counsel from Dr. Matthew Singh, maritime ethicist, reinforced the approach. Every artifact, he insisted, must be treated as a memorial. No recovery was to proceed without dual authorization from both scientific and descendant oversight. The protocols required that all findings, sensor logs, photogrammetry, and calibration files be published for public review, with a direct line for stakeholder feedback. Throughout the mission, a code of non-disturbance governed every maneuver. No object was touched, and no silt was disturbed unless absolutely necessary. The drone's path was mapped with input from all parties, ensuring that the pursuit of knowledge never outweighed the duty of respect. For the team, these consultations were not a formality, but a living contract, proof that science and remembrance could move forward together, each step witnessed and accounted for. The mission's data, from the raw sensor logs to the full photogrammetry mesh, is not kept behind closed doors. Each file is assigned a unique hash string, embedded in the metadata and published alongside the mission report. Calibration files and sensor identifiers, for example, HES Charon Stress 004, reference exact moments in the dive, allowing any researcher to trace the origin of every reading. The team has pledged to release the complete suite, thermal overlays, stress sensor outputs, and the three-dimensional collapse model, all available for download and public scrutiny. This approach is not just a gesture, it is an open challenge to the scientific community. Test the findings, audit the chain of custody, and attempt to reproduce or refute the conclusions. Every measurement, every anomaly flagged by the AI is documented in a format that can be independently validated. The calibration logs, with their hash strings and time codes, are included for peer review, ensuring that no claim stands without a clear path to verification. The commitment to transparency extends beyond the mission's technical team. External experts, including metallurgists and maritime archaeologists, are invited to examine the published files and run their own analyses. The data officer's logs, sensor readouts, and photogrammetry outputs are organized by file ID and timestamp, creating a public ledger of the investigation. The responsibility for interpretation is handed over to anyone willing to examine the evidence. In this way, the search for truth becomes a collective project, with the tools for validation placed in the hands of the world. Today, the ocean yields secrets that rewrite accepted history and expose new ethical crossroads. As artificial intelligence-driven technology peels back layers of the deep, the line between discovery and disturbance grows sharper. The Titanic's wreck is vanishing faster each year, urging us to confront hard questions now. What we choose to uncover and what we choose to let rest will define how we honor both truth and memory. Share your thoughts below.